To item 4 for presentation, discussion, and for possible action, and Mr. Link Router
If I may, Mr. President?
and representative from the State Engineer's Office, USGS, will be here. And Link's going to report to us. Do you want to go ahead with this?
If I may do an introduction? Sure. Okay, thank you. First, I want to appreciate my sincere thanks for USGS and also Division of Water Resources sending representatives here to be this meeting once again to speak to the board. And if I may suggest is that first Mike Moran from USGS might tell us if there's anything that's changed regarding the proposed basin study, particularly schedule or budget. And then Link Broder will tell us what the status is at the federal level, if there's what opportunity there might be on additional funding. And then John Gilray from representing Jason King is here, and he will talk to us about a follow-up on that as the value of the study. Jason King, with the state legislature being in session, is not here, and neither is Warren Hardy for the same reason. So if you're okay with that?
Mm-hmm.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay.
So, Mr. Moran?
Want me to stand up here, or?
Sure, if you don't mind. You'll show up on the screen though.
Well, we got a drop lid right there. If we need to, we just pull
drop
it.
it.
Yeah.
Something on my head. I guess I'll introduce myself. I'm Mike Moran. I'm currently the study section chief in the Henderson office of the USGS. I'm sort of the de facto head of the water branch in Henderson in our office there. We have two branches. We also have a biologic division. I don't work in that area. So I'm kind of the head of the office and also of the studies section. And I came in September and gave you a talk briefly on our proposal, and I think you got a copy of that. As far as the timeline, I don't think we actually set anything out in September. We kind of gave you the proposal, and it was yours to look at and decide on. As far as when we could start, if you wanted us to, we're pretty busy. We're about halfway through our fiscal year. I would say that even if you wanted us to, we couldn't probably start this fiscal year on this study. We probably would have to wait until the beginning of fiscal year 2014, which would be in October before we could get started on this. As far as the funding, I was looking through the proposal here, and I think it says here that we would match you. I think it says 55-45. Generally, we match 50-50 with agencies, and so I think we could probably do 50-50. And I did speak to the head of the Nevada USGS office, John Shaka, this morning, and he said that there would be no problem with that currently, and that we could probably even find matching funds this year. But I guess what I'm saying from my own personal standpoint is I don't think that our office could actually begin the work this fiscal year. However, the funding to match this is still available. And so if we started next fiscal year, we could match you. And I think, I don't know, like I said, this says 55-45. We usually can do 50-50, so that's probably negotiable. But yeah, the funding is still available through our co-op program. And that would, once we kind of get someone into the system, it's pretty unusual for that to ever end. I mean, it usually just continues on. We get funding every year from Congress, appropriated money for this co-op program. And so I don't see that really stopping or slowing down in any way. However, one thing I will say is that it's kind of a first come, first serve. So if we have other studies with non-federal agencies that we can match, then we will go ahead and do that if that becomes available to us. So that's kind of, we can't really set it aside for you, is I guess what I'm saying. Let's see, what else? Does that cover everything?
Does the board have any questions for Mr. Moran?
I don't think so. I think 50-50 definitely sounds better.
I thought the 55-45 was 55 in our favor, so.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think it's said. And you know, sometimes we do that split to 55-45, but again, that's negotiable. I'm pretty sure, you know, I can't really speak for John. John is the head of our office, and he makes those actual decisions. I don't. But, you know, he's open to that, and so I think that probably would be doable. I guess the other thing that I forgot to mention is that John told me that, you know, when I looked through this, and as I recall, we had planned in our proposal here to go for this study to go 5 years, which, you know, is a fairly long time, even for one of our studies. But John mentioned that I could tell you that if you're interested, we could do sort of a phased approach to this work. And that is, you know, we could break this up into smaller components, that we could do one at a time, with one followed by the next one and then the next one. That doesn't save you any money in the long run, but you know, what it might do is spread the study over yet a longer time frame. Now, I don't know if that's something you want to do. Again, that would probably reduce the year-by-year cost to spread it over a longer time period. But then, you know, a longer time period is a longer time period, and so, you know, you could be looking at, who knows, 7, 8 years maybe, if you wanted to spread it that far or longer. Personally, I don't know if I would recommend that. That's an awful long time frame for us to do our studies in. You know, you get spread out too far, and the study, I think, lacks. I mean, it's hard to bring it all together in the end because you've gone for such a long period of time. So, I guess that's about it from my end. If there's any other questions.
Any board comment? I think my opinion hasn't changed. You know, we've had many studies done on this aquifer, and if anybody wants to look up the Muddy Creek aquifer, they go back to 1897, and I still think until we get an agreement with the states, there's really no need to do any more surveys. So that's my position. It says here we need to have, to take some kind of action.
Well, we got 2 more people that are gonna speak to us.
Oh, we're not through yet?
No. As much as we'd like to.
All right, Mike, go ahead.
Set better news for you.
Seems your name's already on here.
Link Router Furman Group. In order for us to get additional funding for this project, we would have to have the delegation make a formal request to Congress for funds above and beyond what USGS is budgeted for, and that is considered an earmark. As you will recall, there's currently a ban on earmarks that precludes us from doing that. When we last spoke in September, I thought for sure that we'd have that, a resolution would be made on this issue at this point, but unfortunately it's not. It's currently being debated. We've made some progress to allowing some earmarks to come back, but right now nothing's been finalized. If you recall, an earmark is a specific request by a specific member for a specific project. And currently there's some efforts underway to try to bring together multiple jurisdictions and multiple programs, and have multiple members of Congress and senators make a request to kind of get around this, make it more of a regional approach. An example of that is, you know, the Section 595 Rural Nevada program, which funds for the arsenic treatment plant. There are several of those rural type programs throughout Wyoming, Nevada, I think Arizona has one, Montana, to kind of pool those together and have all of the senators and members of Congress make one request, and that's a way to get around the ban. And I think the same strategy could be applied to this. Obviously, we've got multiple jurisdictions that's impacted by the study. We could get obviously Arizona and Utah on board to make a request to their delegation, and have them then make a request to Congress for additional funding for this. That might get us around the ban. But right now, things are really kind of up in the air, and nothing has been finalized. I will say that the delegation is very aware of this. They're supportive of it, if you all are, and will do what they can to try to help you out with additional funding. But right now, their hands are kind of tied on it. You know, again, I thought I would know more by now. I don't. I think this issue will be resolved one way or the other here in the coming weeks from months, certainly. It was interesting to hear USGS make a presentation that this probably won't happen until FY 2014. I think for certain by then, a resolution will have come to pass, and we'll be good there. Certainly in the out years of a 5-year study, I think those last years, I would say for certain we'll be able to do something and try to get additional funds. But right now, that's where we stand. Any questions or comments?
I thought your email was interesting about the earmarks and how it's affected Washington, the one you sent out. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Also, I guess my question is, do you have any rapport with the Arizona or the Utah delegation?
Well, certainly, we know, but I could, you know, we could definitely go in and approach them, but I don't have a specific rapport like I do in the Nevada delegation.
Right.
Is there any other questions, or? I guess you're off the hook.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Lane.
Thank you.
Howdy. I'm John Guillory from the State Engineer's Office, and I'm here on behalf of Jason King, who directed me to just keep my comments brief and summarize the letter that he sent, basically claiming that we still offer our full support for the USGS study. Unfortunately, our budget is still very lean, and we would not be able to offer any financial support for the project. But we would be willing to offer any and all data and technical support to the USGS if they need it. And that's pretty much all I've got.
So not much change.
Promising.
Yeah. Okay, you want?
I guess the only comment I might make is that Jason was able to contact at least the Utah and Arizona equivalents for the divisions of water resources, and we had a little bit of I had a little bit of a discussion with USGS about this report, is that they could become what would be called stakeholders, and would you know, look for their input on it, whereas we would be the principal cooperator of the report, meaning we provide more guidance and meaningful input, but having stakeholders from the other two states would be very helpful in terms of getting their buy-in on the end result. And so Jason's commitment to supporting this, as well as garnering the support of the other two states, I thought was really valuable, especially since USGS would be willing to poll them for opinions about it, which is critical for us, because if the other two states don't buy into the results, then we have a struggle, you know, as to the efficacy of it. But if they're buying into it along the way, then basically we get to achieve our goals, in my opinion. So, any comments about that?
I'm not aware of any of these discussions with the states, but
Yeah, he made brief phone calls.
yeah.
All right, that's board members, has anybody got a motion, or what kind of action do you want to take?
Well, I've got just a couple comments. Number one, you know, to have this on the agenda as an action item, and I mean, I appreciate these guys traveling out here and talking to us tonight, but once again, funding's been the driving force of this thing from the get-go, and I still don't see any way that we're gonna pay for it out of our budget. If the state thinks their means are sparse, you know, we're in the same boat, so. And until we can come up, you know, we're working on next year's budget, until we can come up with a budgeted item to pay for it, I don't see how we can make any recommendation or motion to continue on until we can figure out how we're gonna fund it, so.
Yeah. Do you want to table this, or? Go
I'd
ahead.
like to speak. I think that
there is gonna be a need for another study, and I think Jason King, I think, has made it pretty clear to us in a couple, 3 meetings that without this study, most likely, we probably won't ever be able to get any additional water rights given to us. They're gonna expect this from us. Lincoln County had to do it up there. They're gonna expect it of us. If we don't look somewhere down the road, we're gonna find ourselves in a position where there isn't gonna be any more water available. So I just don't think we can just sneeze it off. I agree with Kenyon. I think that funding is a problem right now. But I don't think we should be writing this off and say that there's enough studies out there, because if we want to get water in the future, I think we need to heed what they're telling us. We're looking at 5 or 10 years down the road, so, you know, if we don't do it today, we do it a year from now, it's still a 5-year study.
The only other comment I got, and until Carl said something, is the whole buy-in of the other 2 states. You know, that's concerned me from the get-go, that we're gonna pay for this study, and even with, you know, with them being stakeholders, to me, until they put some money on the table and I've been told by a number of people, if you think you're gonna get Arizona and Utah to come in and agree with what's going on, you're up in the night. I just, to go out and put out the money for a study when 2 other states have a dog in the fight and we're paying for it, I mean, we're just the little Virgin Valley Water District, you know, we can't fund everybody's parties.
Yeah, well, I think we just heard tonight that they're maybe 55% would be available to us right now. We need to continue to look for that other 45%. However, I think that this.
50-50.
Yeah, 50.
Yeah, he said 50-50, but we could maybe negotiate to 55-45.
No, we can't go above 50%. The way it's written
Well,
now is you're
50-50 is
paying
still pretty
55,
good.
we're paying 45. That's the way that the proposal is.
I think that also that there has been some agreements that have taken place between Utah and Nevada, and they're working on some agreements for the future as well. So I'm not so sure that Utah's never gonna work with us, but as far as Arizona's concerned, unless there's some major changes in policy in Arizona, you're probably dead on.
Well, and the problem is Utah's gonna be the tough one to get water out of here, but Arizona, not so much. I mean,
But fortunately for us, we don't have to get approval from Arizona, or we don't have to get approval from Utah, but we have to get approval from Nevada. And Nevada is the one that's telling us that if we're not prepared and we haven't proven that there's additional water there, that we're not gonna get it. So I think our number 1 concern is where do we stand with Nevada, and what's our possibilities of getting some water, additional water in the future.
money talks, and
Yeah.
unfortunately,
Yeah, I don't think
we're
there's
not
any of us
talking very loud right
that
now.
thinks we're gonna get any more water out of the state of Nevada either. Well, what should we do with it? What do you want?
My personal opinion is that we don't do anything until we see a budget that says that we have money to even pay for it. I mean, and at that budget time, then we can decide if we're willing to pay that, spend that money for the study. But right now, it's not a budgeted item, so we can't
Yeah.
go ahead and approve it on, with money that we have. So until we see next year's budget, I don't know that we can do anything.
I agree with watching for the next budget. I think this is something that we don't want to just completely disregard, that we need to just keep an eye on for possible funding still coming about from other agencies, and still keep us in the loop for when that may happen. The study's important to us, it's important to Mesquite. I mean, if we don't really know how much there is in there, then we can't plan for it.
I can't see any need for any action at this point in time,
So we'll just let it die?
unless there is some direction we want to give staff.
Well, I think the direction's been given in the past, that
Yeah,
we
we've
find the
talked about it
funding,
enough
you know,
times.
and bring it up at budget.
Ken?
Hi, Tim. Thank you. We are working it into the budget for you to review. And you'll see that next month in our budget reviews to see what will be the consequences of essentially 47,000-ish, per year added into the budget. So that will be, we will do that for you.
Okay, so I see that item dies for a lack of motion.